A1034 is actually a bill that I had sponsored on a bipartisan basis with Assemblyman Andrzejczyk, Assemblyman Land for years, and I know Senator Beach has it in the Senate. There's currently no Democratic co-sponsor, so I welcome my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to join us, of course, as well as my colleagues in the Republican caucus. About 20 years ago, New Jersey did a really good job in creating its no-call list, which allows people to stay off of telemarketers' solicitation lists, and that bill has worked, or that law has worked fairly well. It certainly has some holes in it, but this bill 1034 would enhance it. And essentially now, as we've seen the no-call list in effect, and we know that technology in our homes and on our cell phones allows for caller ID, so that people know before they even pick up the phone who they're going to be speaking with. This bill kind of takes that technology into account. The current law requires telemarketers to identify themselves and the reasons they're calling within 30 seconds of the call initiating. This would move that identification up to the caller ID stage. So the bill simply requires a telemarketer to disclose its name of the telemarketing firm and its phone number to the no-call, or the caller ID services, I should say, so that individuals know who they're going to be speaking to when the phone call comes in. The alternative that the telemarketer has is to identify the entity on whose behalf the telemarketer is calling, and the customer service number of that person. If there's an independent contractor who's doing telemarketing, they can indicate that they're selling the Acme Widget Company widgets today, and give the Acme Widget Company customer service number. The point isn't to be a gotcha for the telemarketers. The point is really to provide some transparency to New Jerseyans, especially those senior populations who can be scammed by phone calls that they don't expect and that ask too much from them, or something untoward. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, it's pretty modest, very short bill. It's a one-paragraph amendment to our no-call list bill. But perhaps at a later committee you could consider it for a vote. And again, love to earn some support for it in the meantime.
Be happy to join you in that, and don't sell yourself short. Sometimes the most modest bills and the simplest bills are sometimes the most effective. I do have a question for you. So would this help, or would this ban the use of these phantom phone numbers, so that a lot of telemarketers are using these numbers that come up and it looks like it's from your hometown, and they actually are nowhere near you? They might even be in another country.
Yeah, I think it would, right? Because it says that when they're making a call, they will transmit or cause to be transmitted the telephone number and the name of the telemarketer. So I don't think they could bounce their numbers internationally or create a number. I think they have to identify their name and their specific number, or again, the name or the specific customer service number of the company that they're representing. So I think you're right that it would address that.
Of course, it makes enforcement difficult in this, but at least if we do catch people, we have a loss. Do we have any questions from anyone on the panel? I think this is a great bill. Assemblywoman?
No, I think it's a good bill, and we need to protect our seniors. What name is displayed?
It could be either the telemarketer or the company that they're representing.
Because some people subcontract. Okay.
Right.
Just the name. Okay.
So and the telemarketer has the option. I think it's an accountability matter, right? There's got to be somebody you can identify and a number you can call back if there's a problem, or if you want to avoid the call altogether, you know who's calling you.
Right. Screening the calls. Okay. Thank you.
So,
Assemblyman Rooney.
yeah, no, Jay, I think it's a great concept. Just a question, looking at this long term, how do we control it? What is the control mechanism that would prevent this from happening? So using the chairman's concept about the auto dialers that's used internationally in the computer systems that are available today to disguise phone numbers, who ultimately would be the control measure? Would it be the phone company, whether it be an AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile, et cetera? Who's the one that's going to control this?
Yeah, I believe there's a civil cause of action for violations. And the violations range from, I think, $10,000 to $20,000 per violation. And so if you get a telemarketer who is hounding or pounding New Jerseyans with multiple phone calls, those that liability can rack up pretty quickly. I assume the Consumer Affairs would be interested in violations of this law and could go to bat for New Jerseyans, but there's also, as I understand it, a private cause of action. You have caller ID functions on both landlines and cell phones that capture this information, so that information now is able to be captured by recipients of the calls. And hopefully people know, either go to DCA, the Department of Consumer Affairs, or an attorney, frankly, if they think if their rights have been violated in this respect.
So the reality is it's going to help with we'll say the legalized telemarketers, right? The ones that are actually a business entity, but the ones that are the scammers, the true scammers that call on the most vulnerable, it's going to be difficult to stop that.
Yeah, I'm not. Listen, if people are going to intend to evade the law, I'm not sure this is going to stop them.
Right. So my question is there a way that we can incorporate into the bill a little bit more power to the phone companies that would prevent that number from then coming forward if it didn't include this information?
I think it's a great idea, and that's why, frankly, I think that's why putting up bills for discussion in committees can be so helpful. Let's look at that together and see if there's a way to bring in more parties here, not to overregulate our businesses, but to put in place common sense checks. I would assume, and this is just an assumption, but I would assume that our carriers would be interested in anti-fraud provisions and would probably welcome opportunities to work with us to deter bad actors. So I think we should look at that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Chairman, if you do, present this bill for further discussion and up for a vote, maybe we could include the carriers so that we could have as much protection available for our most vulnerable. If I call you today on my phone, it comes up blocked, right? That provision has been on my phone for the last 20 years. But I get phone calls from my local police department, and it's not them calling, right? And I'm sure we all have gotten calls from, PSE&G, AT&T. They're not, AT&T or PSE&G calling us. They're scammers. So if we can include some provisions and get the buy-in from, the carriers, maybe this would become a stronger piece of legislation.
That'd be great. Sure.
I think that's a good idea. Actually, I think what we should do is invite the carriers in to have a discussion, a larger discussion, because as I understand this, and I could be wrong, I often am, the carriers have much more technology than they are currently using to block the types of phone calls that we are all inundated with. And I know the FCC has urged them to do more, and I think they could do more. It'd be interesting to get them in here and hear what they are doing. From what I understand, there are these very small carriers that most of us would never even know their names, that facilitate millions and millions of these phone calls that they then funnel to carriers that we do know. And for that, and so they kind of mask where they're coming from and feed them to these larger carriers, and they collect, a fraction of a penny on every one of these calls. But when there are millions and probably billions of these calls, they make some money off of it. So it'd be interesting to get the carriers in here and hear from their security people what they're doing, because this is a huge problem for many, many people. And as you say, the senior population, very vulnerable. My mother, who's 101, sometimes we usually talk around 10:30 in the morning, and she'll say, "I've had 7 phone calls already from telemarketers." and I say, "And don't answer them, right?" And she goes, "Yeah, no, I don't answer them yet." But they are inundated, and we know that if they didn't work on some level, they wouldn't be doing them. So there are people, there are victims out there, and it is a major consumer issue. So I'm going to ask that we, maybe in December, November, or something like that, invite the phone companies, the Verizons and the T-Mobiles and the et cetera, AT&T.
Chairman, if this modest bill can spur a broader discussion, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, and we could bring this back for that broader discussion, and move it or even amend it that day. So let's do that. Let's talk to them about coming and putting this on the agenda regarding privacy and security and these types of calls that just inundate us. And you know, for many years they had not penetrated my cell phone, but now they're coming to the cell phone near you, right?
Every day, and car warranties especially.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much for being here and for your interest in this. I look forward to joining you on this bill and working on it further.
Chairman, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good
Have a great day.